Well, hey there, Jennifer Coffindaffer. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you're having a great day.
Yes, I am. Good to be
I know
here.
you're really busy, so I really appreciate setting aside some time to be able to hop into just updating everybody from your perspective of what's going on in the Kiely Rodni case. And I certainly have a whole lot of questions, but before we jump into this, I would love to hear just your basic overview. What are your thoughts as you intake information about this?
Well, of course, it's. I'm very concerned that this will end up being a really tragic situation. You know, a young woman going to this party that ended up being 200 or 300 people, some sort of kind of described as a senior, big bash. I've heard it described as a rave, and where she became highly intoxicated and apparently left by her friends, and now has not been heard or seen from, and or her car. And so it's just such a tragic set of circumstances so far.
One of the things that really stuck out to me, and this is the same question I had about the Dylan Rounds case that I texted you about. I don't understand why sometimes FBI gets involved and other times they don't. And then on top of that, this is involvement with the Department of Homeland Security too. And then this is the first FBI flyer that I've seen that says, if see or contact the United States embassy you're closest to. Can you break down all of that for us specifically in this case? How come FBI is involved, Department of Homeland Security, and they're telling people to look at the United States embassy if they have any tips?
Well, let me break down, first of all, when the FBI gets involved in local matters. First of all, these matters don't really have a federal nexus typically. In other words, somebody who's just missing, if you will. Where the nexus comes in is when local departments decide to call on the FBI for their assistance. When that happens, the FBI can open a local assist case. And again, it has to have very specific precursors. It has to be asked for by the department that has the jurisdiction. And in this case, that was done, and the FBI is able to open a case and lend assistance, resources, people, money, and all of that is so important to finding these lost ones. So that's what happened in this case. As far as the Department of Homeland Security, oftentimes there are task forces, violent crime task forces, there's terrorism task forces, and they incorporate all these different jurisdictions. So in this case, that is, in my belief, what has happened is there's actually a task force that is working this.
I see. So my thought was, oh, they suspect that she was trafficked, but that's totally wrong thinking on my part.
Well, I don't think, judging from what the press release said yesterday at the news conference, it doesn't seem like they have any information regarding an abduction as of yet. They said they're keeping their eyes open, they're keeping their brains open to any possibility, but right now there's no indication of that.
Yeah. So like initially, I guess I would say it was an abduction because they couldn't find her vehicle, and now they're sort of backtracking that and they're saying, well, we really don't know what it is.
Right. I believe they've probably conducted extensive interviews. If it's true that there were 200 to 300 people, which is what all the reports say, it's going to take a long time to sift through who was there, who wasn't there, and what people have on their phones, what video and photography might have taken place at that party, and what people are saying. So my belief is initially they erred on the side of a possible abduction, but now they've talked to people and there's no evidence of that as of yet.
Wow, that's so interesting. And 300 teenagers out there partying in the woods seems like the local law enforcement would know about that, especially in a small town. I wonder how come there wasn't any involvement earlier. How come the police didn't try to stop the party? Did they know about the party? Have you heard anything about that?
No, but my belief is that they probably didn't know about the party. My belief is that it was probably put together somewhat quickly and more done by word of mouth. I have teenagers, teenagers and college age kids. And so I have a little bit of personal knowledge on top of course, my law enforcement experience. And sometimes these parties come together pretty quickly and they grow substantially just
Yeah.
by word of mouth.
You know, I'd heard a local from the area saying that part of the reason that this year's party was so big, because this was sort of like an annual thing they did in this area. During COVID, people from larger school districts in California, Sacramento, and wherever else moved to this area because the way that they did online schooling was a lot better due to the pandemic. And so when this party sort of arose, they contacted all of their friends from the outskirts and in some of the bigger cities. Because I was wondering, like, why are there people from Sacramento coming, an hour and a half to this party? And then that helped make it make sense for me.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. With cellular communication and everything, it spreads like wildfire. Parties like this, and also spreads, unfortunately, beyond getting beer and some drinks. And by all accounts, there were drugs there, and of course, people who deal drugs and particularly deal or are willing to deal to minors. A party like this is a way for them to make a lot of money. And I believe that a lot of people were there providing things and making money on this.
And that's just heartbreaking to think that there's like grown adults out there peddling teenagers to make a buck. And, uh, now we have a missing girl because of it. And who knows who other
Mhm.
people's lives were damaged in the process. And it's just so unfortunate and sad. Now, one other thing that I wanted to ask you about, because there's a lot of this case that's piquing my interest, but there's a group of teenagers that seem to be leading a charge and collecting information and passing stuff on to law enforcement and going and doing interviews of their own. I don't feel comfortable talking negatively about teenagers on the internet. I just think that's just, I don't know, unethical and immoral in some ways. I've just never seen, though, so many teenagers take charge and then law enforcement appears to just say, sure, yeah, you guys go have your teen to teen conversations and pass along whatever information you deem valid. Do you think that's a typical way to handle it, or how have you processed that aspect of this case?
I think it's really unusual. I can tell you when I would conduct an interview, and this is how I was taught and how it was always passed down, is we made it very clear and asked whoever we were interviewing that was a possible witness not to say anything. And we explained to them why, because it ends up tainting evidence, and it ends up tainting a case potentially when people are asking questions, people are being interviewed multiple times, stories change, people say they know something that they really just heard, but then now it becomes as if
Yeah.
it's the first person. So Tyler, this is very odd to see, odd behavior. But I think law enforcement is concerned that people aren't coming forward because of the illegal activities that were occurring there. And so at this point, they're willing to take whatever they can get.
And I hate that. Like, if there's any teenagers that were a part of that, just know you getting grounded because you were making some bad choices is worth it for the sake of somebody's life. And to stay a little bit out of trouble, but at the expense of it, we don't find Kylie. Come on. I mean, do the math on that. And so that's, to me, I just felt like I cannot believe they're having a bunch of teenagers gathered together and have conversations with one another, and 6 or 7 of them are deemed to be able to pass the information on to law enforcement as necessary. And I know how teenagers work. I can just see all of the hierarchical conversations and arguments that would emerge. Why is this the leader? Why is this person in charge? And it just doesn't seem like it's going to end up well. So we really need to pray for them. What are your theories of what likely happened if you had to break down 2 or 3 possibilities?
So from the information we have, which of course we're limited to what's in the public eye, but I fear that from the information we have, that she was extremely intoxicated, that she did get in her vehicle and perhaps had an accident and is somewhere in that area. Remember, these areas are extremely hard to search. We
Yeah.
don't even know how far she could have gotten in that car. And if
Oh,
you're
I've spent a lot of time in
disoriented,
this area too, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, it's fast.
Yeah.
Um, And I think it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of interviews, but I do believe that people saw her leave. I believe she's on camera, probably multiple cameras, even if it's just dancing. I believe there's evidence out there that has yet to be seen, but
Yeah.
I think it's going
I
to take a
definitely
long
think so.
time.
So, accident number one, probably most likely. Is there any chance that somebody took off with her, one of those drug dealers in a car and took off with her?
I think it would be more likely that an individual she perhaps consented to go in the car with, and perhaps they went someplace, and then from there she could have taken off. And again, the same scenario. Again, this is just judging by the information that is known to us. And, I'm putting first and foremost what is typical of happening. At this kind of a party, you're not necessarily going to see somebody that wants to abduct somebody show up.
Mhm.
And, but she's in a vulnerable position. She's young, she's beautiful, she's inebriated, intoxicated. So certainly it made her extremely vulnerable. But I'm just hearing nothing from law enforcement that there was anything at all underhanded that went on there from the standpoint of somebody taking her.
Yeah, I understand that. From if somebody did take her, so like most likely
Mhm.
she got in an accident. Probably she had too much to drink and tried to drive home. Seems to be maybe the most likely. In this other scenario of someone had taken her, what's the breakdown of that being a teenager that would have taken her versus an adult? Like, because I haven't really heard about any 16-year-olds abducting someone. That just doesn't happen. We'd have two missing 16-year-olds on our hand at this point.
Right. And what I meant, just to be clear, was maybe her getting into a car with somebody, into her car with somebody offering to drive, not necessarily anything that started out nefarious in any way,
Yeah.
but that she consented to. And then that person left. And then she went on from there driving, or something happened accidentally during that time frame.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying that a second likely scenario is that she would have gone off with somebody she knew or met at that party. And then from there, things went south.
Man, it's just so heartbreaking. We have a question from Miss Jones. It says,
Mhm.
"Do you think there were any witnesses to this? Do you think Sammy is doing a lot because she feels guilty for leaving her friend with sketchy people?"
Well, I think Sammy definitely is feeling some guilt for leaving. I can tell by just how she's acting. Um, she's really throwing herself in the middle of this, and she's offered, the excuses as to why she left. Um, so, are there witnesses? I think there's witnesses to her leaving.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, but to the extent of a witness seeing something bad happen to her, I think that that has not been exposed.
I heard in one interview there was a car that was parked next to her car, and that guy was sleeping in his car, like went to lay down in his car, and her car was still there, and then he woke up and it wasn't there. But to me, it's like these people are so intoxicated; they're probably not paying attention to everything that happened. They certainly won't remember every single thing that was going on.
Well, and that's another huge problem I was going to bring up, is that even if you have people coming forward with witness accounts, people in that state become very unreliable witnesses.
Yeah.
And depending what they were taking, their memory and their account of really what happened there could be completely distorted from the reality of it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I totally understand that. Did you touch on on them asking about the United States Embassy on the FBI poster?
Oh, on the embassy. That and apologies, I find very strange. I will have to look at that, Tyler. I have not seen that particular poster that you're referring to, and it seems very odd to me. The instance
I
that
can
you
put it on
see
the screen if
something,
you want me to.
oh, great. The instance that I've seen that before was in the name Naomi Arian case. I don't know if
Yeah,
you remember that,
yeah.
but that happened in her case because her father was an employee of the State Department. And so that made a lot of sense, because at that point they really did not know whether this was a stranger, whether it had any nexus to his employment. So that made a lot of sense to me.
That
Let
case
me-
is heartbreaking. Okay, I'll zoom in on it. So this is from the FBI website, fbi.gov, for
Okay.
pictures or whatever. And then down here it has this statement: please contact your local FBI agent or the nearest American embassy or consulate.
I do find that interesting, and unusual. I would think that they would only be contacting the FBI offices that would be in that area. Typically, if you directing somebody to contact a consulate, again, it's because there's some nexus that they feel would exist to the State Department. So I find that very unusual
Yeah,
in a
me too.
case like this, particularly.
That's why I was like,
So
and then when the Department of Homeland Security was involved in the case, it just had me thinking maybe there was a little intuition or foreknowledge, trafficking ring or something going on there. Again, I don't want to build into conspiracy, but that combined with so many agencies getting involved in this so quickly, when I'm watching these other cases and it's like pulling teeth to get people to do anything. I just don't understand it from my perspective. I'm
well,
sure you understand it a lot better.
yeah, when you're in the throes of it, as the Bureau, as an example, we're not even allowed to get involved in any way, shape, or form until local law enforcement comes to us.
I
So
see.
just to put this in perspective, you have local law enforcement that really don't want the FBI involved. They want to handle their own cases.
I
There's
see.
not a good relation with their local FBI office. And they really don't want anybody, big brother, coming in and stepping on their case and directing it. That isn't always the case. Oftentimes there's a very good relationship and the FBI gets involved very early. Then you also have, within each FBI office, you have their own considerations, what they have going on, what their manpower looks like. Are they working on a huge case where they just cannot commit, the manpower? But in this case, clearly, not only is the FBI able and willing to assist fully, you have a good relationship with this local department that immediately reached out and got help.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to see, right? In any situation, you want to see local, state, and federal working together hand in hand for these cases,
Yeah. No, I
Tyler.
think
But that
that's great.
the embassy question is a very good question, and I'm very surprised to see that on here. And I think your thought about, could this be a trafficking situation or something like that? You just can't discount any possibility. You really can't. But I still find it odd they would put the embassy.
And I don't understand the Department of Homeland Security too, because they're more in cyber security, counterterrorism, border security. So why are they involved in this case?
Well, to understand Homeland Security is to understand the nexus of how Homeland Security was even created, right? I mean, really, we had Border Patrol and U.S. Customs, and those were both responsible for our border security. Then after 9/11, particularly because of them starting the Air Marshal program again and other programs, they sort of created this institution of, the Department of Homeland Security, but really it's Customs and Border Patrol, sort
Yeah.
of. I mean, that's the genesis of then it tangenting off. And so their areas of responsibility mimic what U.S. Customs were responsible for. But I can tell you that once that was created, they do become a part of the task forces, the JTTFs and other task forces that are formed by the FBI, that the FBI typically runs, and then all these agencies are a part of. There's other fugitives agents, for instance, the U.S. Marshals lead a lot of fugitive task force that the FBI then comes into. So I don't make a lot out of Homeland Security being a part per se, because I consider them another federal partner. And so it doesn't surprise me.
So it's like, let's just leverage whatever resources they have or whatever.
Yes, perfectly said.
So the Lost Trail Lodge, which is where Kiely lives, there's two lakes. I don't know if you've looked at the map. There's sort of like two lakes and some other waterways she possibly had to drive by to get home. I know that the lake where they were having the party at, for example, it was called the Prosser Creek Reservoir. It's only about 5 foot deep, and they've searched that pretty in depth. So
Mhm.
if we're going with the accident theory sort of being like the major one, and I've seen this before, people go off the road and into these water embankments, and it just takes months for them to find them.
It's so true. I mean, I hate to bring this up, but look at Brian Laundrie.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars spent, uh, really tens of thousands of man hours spent,
Yeah.
and couldn't be found for over 3 weeks. And that's just one small example. So look at all the cars that are being found. I believe it's in Lake Mead.
Lake Mead in Las Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, car after car, and body after body. I mean, they're finding all sorts of things with the waters receding, and I would believe that those bodies of water were possibly searched previously, more contemporaneous with those people being lost, or those cars being lost. So, Tyler, to search these areas is a huge undertaking,
Hmm.
even when you have quasi-pointed, um, you know, direction as to which way they would have gone. Remember, she could have gone in anywhere and got confused, thought
That's
that
true.
this road led to her house. She was 16 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, driving for a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And all it would take is her veering in someplace, getting disoriented with where she was. And I mean, that is my belief,
Yeah.
based on what we know now, that that's most likely, let's say.
Oh, I'm
Not
with you.
discounting other things, Tyler, because we can't. That would be remiss of us, but probabilities.
Well, I just have a kind of a weird feeling about the news media sort of going after these 16, 17-year-olds and putting them on the camera and saying, drive us around and show us what you're searching for and things like that. I don't know how you feel about that. I want to protect these kids. And I would imagine that these teenagers are scared. They're probably scared themselves because they're like, well, do one of our friends do this? Is it even safe to go out in public? And now we're thrusting them into adult responsibilities. So I just want to speak against that and say, we need to let them be children and let the adults handle the situation.
Well, unfortunately, we see with the media, a hunger and a thirst for getting something salacious out there quickly, for them being the ones in the know on certain pieces of information. And so I do hate to see that. I'm with you on that. I think
Yeah.
these are young kids. They're kids.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're 15, 16, 17 year olds, and it's a lot of responsibility to put on them. And God forbid that they lead this investigation into the wrong direction, and just taking away time from what law enforcement is trying to do, which is truly find her.
I know that's exactly how I feel. Miss Jones says, amazed how fast the FBI was on this. Dylan Rounds didn't have this much help in the first week. Teen interviews seem unreliable without police monitoring. That's exactly what. And you and I had a conversation about Dylan Rounds. Like, I wasn't understanding how come there wasn't more involvement. You were explaining to me a lot of that is contingent on the local law enforcement's desire to have some of that involvement, and so that makes perfect sense. Thank you, Miss Jones, for those thoughts. I was
Yeah,
amazed
I
at how
concur with Miss Jones. Exactly. I mean, I agree with her.
Me too. I was amazed at how fast the FBI got in on it. Now, how does that happen? Were you ever called in on a case, like a local case, immediately after it happened, or
Oh, yes. Yes, right after it happened. Yeah. When you have, when I say when the FBI office has a good relation with their local jurisdictions, and this is a lot, right? You have all the towns, all the cities, the sheriff's offices.
yeah,
So it takes really good liaison. And I know when I was at SSRA, which was a manager of 9 counties in Florida, I mean, one of my number one things was to go out and establish relationships, meet these sheriffs, meet the undersheriffs, talk with the police chiefs and the assistant police chiefs, so they had a name and somebody they knew cared and was interested. And that's what the Bureau really does strive to do. But all it takes really is one bad relation for, or just lack of knowledge. A lot of local departments don't understand that we can open these cases. And then remember too, as I mentioned, sometimes the local office does not have the resources, meaning the FBI, to lend much help.
Oh, that's a good point too. That's an interesting point. I would assume in this case they need lots of divers. I don't know if they need dogs. Like, do you think they need dogs? Maybe, I don't know, but you would think they would be able to do the search. There's a lot of mountains though, a lot of hills. What type of resources do you think would most effectively bring this search to an end the fastest?
The most amount of people that they can get to conduct these searches. And you can use volunteers, you really can, as long as they are led by experienced and sophisticated law enforcement elements. I think dogs are actually important in this case, because if they can establish a scent, and again, this is dependent on a lot of factors. We're already 5-6 days out. But at contemporaneous, when she was reported, they should have had a dog seeing if they could pick up any sort of scent from her in that area to see where she went.
Wow. Well, I want to honor your time, and I know you only have a couple more minutes. Is there any final thoughts that you want to leave us with on this case?
And maybe this is speaking as a mixture, half retired FBI and half mom. But I would just say, really, as close as you can, monitor your underage ones closely. When they say they're going to go to a party, you drive them to that party. See what's really going on there. And if it's a situation like this, pull them out. They'll be mad, but there'll be other parties. And the other thing that I always drive home with my kids, and I still do to this day, don't leave your wingman. I'm not trying to blame any of these teenagers. I'm just trying to say, as a point of reference for the future, nothing good happens when you leave behind somebody intoxicated in these circumstances.
Oh, I'm right there with you. It's like, download the Life 360 app, keep good tabs on your kids. Do you have any quick hot takes on the Harmony Montgomery case?
I am so glad, Tyler, you mentioned that, because I have to tell you, I was in a meeting and so couldn't join Hey JB today, but it's so heavy on my heart because I think we all know and knew, at least I did, just like with Summer, and Oakley, Carlson, we can't forget her, similar circumstances. But when they took out that refrigerator, and I know there's these rumors that that's a different refrigerator than the refrigerator that was there. That's what the tenant said. And the FBI just doesn't willy-nilly take out a refrigerator. And buy a new refrigerator to take its place. There was a reason. The other thing is they took those floorboards out. And Tyler, what's most interesting to me on that case, and I said it from the get-go, there is someone that gave a probable cause statement for an affidavit to be written now for that to happen.
Right.
And that was huge to me, because that means there's a corroborator that had the knowledge that she was, and I'm just throwing this out here, Tyler, bludgeoned to death, hurt. That's why they took the floorboards, kept in that closet in some area, and then perhaps kept in a refrigerator. Sadly, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen this. And that they were able to recover either DNA from that refrigerator, or not that refrigerator, from those floorboards of Harmony. And Tyler, I'm sick because now we see it. Right? We knew it sort of. But now we know it.
I know, it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. Well, thank you so much for joining. I want to pray over you. I know I do that every time. It just means a lot to me to be able to do that, because I see what you do is so important. And I really believe in this next season that God's using people like you to take back different spheres of influence. And he's using you to take back true crime and take back media in a different way than he uses me. And it really brings joy to my spirit to see you on the news and talking about these cases and helping families. And so I want to be able to pray for you if that's okay.
Yes, Tyler, thank you for having me. And that's one of the number one reasons that when I get a request from you, I honor it, because I love your nexus with God and the spiritual side of this. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, Father, thank you so much for Jennifer and just the mission that you have her on. I pray that even in this next season, as you're illuminating different things in our society and culture, you just continue to make her such a bright light for the gospel, and that you give her knowledge of witty ideas, and you speak to her heart about these cases, and you give her insight, and that when she goes on these news outlets and on these media sources, that she shines bright with you and bright with ideas that came from you. And I just pray, Father, that you'll protect her, and that every single weapon that the enemy's formed against her will not prosper. And we just bless her. We bless her in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. All right. Till next time.
Thank you, Jennifer.
All right. Bye now.
Wow, that was really great. It was so kind of her to come on. Now, I had planned to get off and then do a stream a little bit later, but there's a press conference that's starting in 10 minutes. So in 10 minutes, we're going to hop into that press conference. But I wanted you guys to get a good angle. Maybe I should do the Google Earth view of this area, because if we're able to do the Google Earth view, and I'll go look at the Lost Trail, you guys can see sort of what we're talking about. And so the Lost Trail Lodge, which is where her family lives, sort of like their motel or whatever they sell. You can sort of see the route that she would have driven on to get to that party. We'll just do a quick overview. I mean, there's water here. Doesn't look very deep, but there is water there she could have went into. There's water over here, the Donner Lake, which is 250 foot deep. I've already looked it up. Here's Truckee, sort of where they're all from. And then if you keep moving up, here's the campground where they were having the party at. But honestly, where they were having the party at this campground, just to be honest with you guys, like, that water is only like 5 foot deep. So let me get this press conference ready to be pulled up. Who's hosting it? Is it the Placer County press conference? Let me see what news outlets are going to be posting that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that interview with Jennifer Coffindaffer. I mean, it's just so amazing to have her on the stream today and for her to share her viewpoints and vantage points of all of that. Wasn't that amazing? Did you guys enjoy it? Karen says, Tyler, you're such a great host. Thank you. And by the way, thank you guys so much for your super chats and super stickers whenever she was on. I didn't want to interrupt the interview to shout them out, but I do appreciate all of you guys that left a super sticker. Amy, thank you so much for that super sticker. Lisa, thank you so much for that super sticker. Mitch, thank you for that super sticker. Miss Jones, thank you for your super chats. You're so awesome. I really appreciate them. Karen, thank you for that. Heidi, thank you for that super sticker. I really appreciate it. You guys are so amazing. Linda, thank you for that super sticker. Good Grandma, thank you for that super sticker. Oh, you guys are just so kind. Oh, I really enjoy Jennifer Coffindaffer. She's so smart too. And man, everything that she has to say, when she says it, I peel my ears. And I meant to ask her, and I'm sure I will send her a text message, and ask her if she has any inkling of what there is to think about that little situation with the United States Embassy being listed on those posters. Then we definitely need to have a conversation about that. Hey, while we're waiting for this press conference to start in just 10 minutes, I'll put the link to the phone lines in if anybody wants to call in. I would be more than happy for you to call in as we're waiting on this press conference to get started.
But we're trying to narrow down the scope, and that if Kiely was seen in any of those videos.
Renee says, Tyler, I love what Jennifer said about coming on your channel. It is truly a God channel because of your obedience. We all love you, and I am praying. Oh, thank you so much, Renee. You're so kind. Really appreciate it.
We are following up on it. Yes.
We're going to continue on to the search and rescue portion of this investigation, which is one of the most important portions of the investigation. I'm going to introduce now Nevada County Sheriff's Office Captain Sam Brown.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming out. I think to start off, I just want to emphasize that we're still in unified command with the Placer County Sheriff's Office, and we're trying to gather as much information as possible. And we're really thankful for our partners. Everybody's mentioned them before, and there's tons more agencies that aren't here present that are participating, especially in the search for Kiely. To date, we have about 3,000 man hours of searching that's gone on, and we're going to continue those search efforts going forward. We've had anything from air support, ground pounders, canines, UTVs, side-by-sides, boats, air support from the state, local, and even at times federal resources. And so there's been nothing held back resource-wise in an attempt to try to locate Kiely or any clues thereof. One thing innovative that the team came up with while we've been dealing with this is a way for the community, who has been extremely supportive and extremely interested in wanting to be participants in what's going on, and who are going out actively into the field and searching. Our team was able to create a map that will allow folks in the community who are going out to track their tracks so that we can monitor and see those types of things and see if that adds some information. I'm not sure that this has ever been attempted before. We do have some concerns that it could shut down our system if too many people are logging on. So hopefully the folks that are logging on and uploading tracks are doing so justifiably and with good intention. Because if it doesn't work out, we would ultimately have to shut it down if it stops the progress or creates some problems. But those folks who have gone into the field or are going into the field on their own volition as citizens in the community, or folks who have come here to help out, there is a process that they can log on, gain access to the CalTopo app, and be able to submit tracks to our team who has some overhead and is able to review it and put that into our mapping process, but also allow us to keep going on with our professional searchers and the folks who are moving forward in business. Hopefully by tomorrow, we'll also have a system set up where folks who have gone out into the field already and maybe are using GPS and things of that nature to track their progress, we'll be able to upload that information and again, help us to supply with, are we in the right direction? Are we searching the right areas? Have we covered somewhere? Do we need to cover somewhere a little bit more thorough, and what that looks like? And so it's more pieces to the puzzle. We're struggling with clues, and so searches aren't super successful if you don't have a direction of where to search. At this point, we have a point last seen, and we're expanding beyond that point last seen in a systematic way that hopefully is capturing right-of-ways and things that would make sense for somebody who is leaving the area. And we're doing the best that we can in an attempt to locate Kiely. Folks who have tips, again, I'll emphasize what was said by my partners. We need people to call into the tip line, provide information, and do a good job. We're extremely lucky here. We're in Nevada County right now. I know we're partnered with Placer County. I could probably say the same for their community as well, just because I've seen the folks that are coming here and it's a mixture. We're extremely lucky to have real positive, good community members that are coming together for the right reasons. And I think that's really important. We had some conversation earlier with local radio about what's going on in community, and that there's some, what we maybe refer to as bad players on the internet, providing bad information or antagonizing like certain things. And really, I would just hope that people don't continue to do that, and that we're looking for how do we have the best progress and make some gains on this extremely difficult situation. And I know, speaking for myself and for a lot of the folks on our team, it's tiring for law enforcement as well, and we want to be able to supply all the right answers, especially to the family. And it's hard to look somebody in the face and tell them you don't have those answers. So once again, I'd encourage the public, if people know something, say something, bring us forward some information. And until we get that, we're going to continue to go through clues and digital data and all those things to help move our search in the right way. And I believe we'll probably do some more Q&A at the end, but thank you.
Thank you. Ever since last evening, we've had a few developments that I'd like to point you in that direction. We'll be having a crew come out and bring out an easel containing several pictures that I will then discuss in detail. So if you look to my left, we have 3 photos. I'm going to start with the photo on the very right. That is the last photo of Kiely Rodni. She was seen just hours before she went to that party at the Prosser family campground, hours before her disappearance. This photo signifies exactly what she was wearing hours before her disappearance. You can see she's wearing not a black tank top, but a black bodysuit. She's also wearing a black studded belt, green Dickies pants, and black Vans shoes. This is what she was last seen wearing just hours before her disappearance. I'll point you to the first photo on the left. This is a photo that, this is a hoodie that was loaned to Kiely on the day that she disappeared. This item is of significance. We believe that Kiely was still in possession of this hoodie when she disappeared. And the photo in the middle is an actual photo of Kiely's vehicle. It's a 2013 silver Honda CR-V. We continue to investigate every single lead that comes to us. We continue to exhaust every lead. We urge the public to please, if anybody knows these 200 to 300 juveniles and young adults who are at the Prosser family campground between Friday evening and early Saturday morning, to please come forward. We have since set up an online tip line. That email is sheriff_tahoeinvesttips@placer.ca.gov. So if somebody is not comfortable calling anonymously, they can feel free to email us via our tip line. That is all the updates we have for today. We will make sure to continue to keep the community updated with the latest information possible on our social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you.
Cindy Osborne, 1.5. Where was this photo taken at? Where was that surveillance? Which
This-
location?
We are not releasing the location right now for investigative purposes, but it was a local business in Truckee at 6:08 p.m.
And the vehicle, what is the age of that photo?
That is a photo from the winter of her vehicle, and that is the most accurate description of her vehicle.
Thank you.
You've received hundreds of tips from the public. Within those hundreds of tips, no one has said that they've seen her leave the party.
To our knowledge, currently, no.
Do we know the last person to have seen her? I heard that somebody saw her around 12:40. Do we know who she was with, what her state of mind was?
Our-
The very last appearance of her.
Yeah, so our detectives are continuing to follow up on those leads. We don't have any solid answers right now. We are continuing to investigate that. Thank you.
A dog team was sent out this morning. Why today, and will you continue to send that team out in the future?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, dog teams were sent out, but I believe they were also sent out on previous days.
Of the search, and we continue to utilize all local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies on her search. And with that, I'm going to toss it over to Placer County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Josh Barr.
This is the press conference from today. I was just playing the one from yesterday.
I want to start again by thanking the family of Kiely and just how supportive they've been of our efforts in conjunction with working the investigation and the search and rescue. I want to commend the community for coming together and taking part of this as well, and all of the efforts the community has put forth in the search and rescue, and also by providing tips to us. I just want to give you a little update about the investigation side. We're sending detectives out on the tips that we're receiving for follow-up. To date, we've received over 500 tips. We're following up right now on over 380 leads, including email leads of over 300. Our request at this point is if you have video of that night, detectives want more of it. There has been a lot of video provided, and some of it had to do with a fight that occurred at the party. Detectives right now are asking for any additional video that you have. So again, we urge you that you would please bring that forward. Again, we'll refer you to the tip line. If you have any issues with the tip line and getting through, there's an alternate email that we've provided. And as it came up in our community meeting last night, if you are hesitating coming forward to law enforcement, please go to someone that you trust, and I urge you to go to that person to come forward to law enforcement, and they can help you do that. Thank you.
I'd like to now turn it over to Nevada County Sheriff's Office Captain Sam Brown, who will discuss today's efforts of the search and rescue.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're continuing our search. Nothing has slowed down. In fact, I believe we have about the same amount of searchers as we had yesterday, over 100 volunteers, as well as sworn staff, CalOES, and all kinds of people. We remain in unified command. Our partners with the Placer County Sheriff's Office have been amazing. CHP has provided us with a lot of space, resources, experts in certain fields, Truckee Police Department. Everybody that's been here, including CAL FIRE and other folks that you wouldn't even necessarily expect to be here, have been great partners and are giving different pieces of experience and expertise to help us sustain and keep this going. To date, we have 4,500 man hours put into this search alone, which is astronomical in the period of time. We had an earlier meeting today with pretty much experts in the field within California, as well as people from CalOES that oversee the entire search system for the state, and the law duty officers that answer within that to help us with mutual aid and things of that nature. We are still lacking clues, and so our searches are based off of probabilities of scenarios and different types of incidents. And so I would echo what my partner, Lieutenant Barnhart, had said, that we need information and we need clues. We need people to give us things, even if it's seemingly small, but we're going to continue our efforts. And I really want to thank the family. They've been pretty amazing. We're not coming forth with the answers that they're wanting, and we know that. That's hard for us, but the family has been amazing for us. And both mom and dad have been active players as well as the rest of the family, and trying to make sure we do the best we can for them. So thank you.
I'd like to now direct everybody's attention back to that board.
She's good at using the board. Looks like they got another picture up. She's wearing a black tank top in it.
You're looking at a very recent photo taken of Kiely about a month before she disappeared. We want you to pay attention to her jewelry. She's wearing very distinctive gold colored necklaces, 1, 2, 3 necklaces. And we do believe that these were the same pieces of jewelry that she was wearing when she went missing. This photo was sent to us by her family, and out of respect for the family, we are releasing this photo and just urging everybody to please pay attention if anybody comes across these pieces of jewelry. If anybody locates anything, to please immediately contact the Placer County Sheriff's Office or the Nevada County Sheriff's Office. With that, we'll open it up for questions.
There was mention of video of a fight. Is that in any way connected to the disappearance?
The only thing I can say is that they have not found the connection yet to it. Obviously, it's being taken into consideration.
And this case is receiving a lot of help from larger agencies, the FBI, Homeland Security at one point. What is it about this case that it's attracting so much help from these larger resources?
Great question.
So as you know, when you are under the age of 18, you're a minor, you're considered very at risk, right? And you're missing. To this day, we still have not been able to locate Kiely or her vehicle. And that's very disturbing for us, for her family, for the entire community. And because we are treating this case as an abduction solely as a result of her vehicle not being located, that now intensifies the search. And so we, again, will not leave any stone unturned, and we have requested the help of every agency who is willing to help us, and that does include many local, regional, state, and federal agencies, and we're very grateful for their help.
And just clarification, you're treating it like an abduction, but not labeling it an abduction?
Correct.
Okay, so-
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes,
Why
sir.
have some of the signs in town been changed to trash and debris and not with their information still? The little flashing orange signs, the fire department put up stuff. Used to say Kiely, her description and stuff, and now it's saying bring your trash and debris to us instead.
I don't have an answer for you. The sheriff's office doesn't control the signs you're talking about, but we can surely inquire and ask. Yeah, we've had lots of discussion about signage. One thing I will throw out is that Code Red and Everbridge, they're the two alert systems. Most people within Nevada County and Placer County are aware of those systems. They're used for emergencies, fires, things of that nature, not typically with missing persons. Due to the struggles of trying to get certain messaging out and higher level messaging, we started releasing our Everbridge and Code Red messages today to include phone call, text message, and email. Some people may not have received it yet. It may take throughout the entire day to have that go out. Somewhat complex to send a message to, say, 100 or 300,000 people.
They had
And
there's a little bit of a
the
weak
system,
signal.
So it's done in a phased approach, but we're trying to compensate for some of those things that are lacking. We've even heard that maybe signs were being pulled down in certain areas of missing posters. Luckily through the Code Red system and things like that, I don't have as much experience with Everbridge, but we have about an 80% enrollment for Nevada County. So out of our 100,000 residents, that message should hit about 80,000 residents, and could even be non-residents if they ended up registering for our system. So we're trying to compensate for some of those things. I would just like to reemphasize, I mean, I think the reason that everybody's in this room right now is this is getting a lot of attention, and a lot of people are aware of it. The more messaging that we get out, we firmly believe is a better way to do business. But most people are aware, and we're trying to make sure that everybody's aware to the best of our tools. There is still business and things that have to go on in life, and some of those entities that aren't working in our system maybe aren't as aware of, hey, like even though you have these responsibilities for debris or trash, that, hey, we can still use some of that help and things like that. But there are still other things that do need to go on. Our emphasis is in the search for Kiely, and we're putting that energy into it.
Is there a specific area, geographic area where the search is being conducted? I mean, we were talking about searching, but is there a specific location, or is it still pretty broad at this point?
Tough to answer. I mean, to truthfully answer, we have a point last seen and a point last known, and that's confirmed by digital evidence and individuals, and that's our focus. And so when we meet with all these experts in the field and we say, hey, here's our search, here's what we've done, here are the amount of hours and tracks and different things that are going into it, are we missing something? And the answer in the room is no. So then you start to play out your scenarios of, is this a missing person who went off the road? Is this a traffic collision that occurred? Is this some sort of an abduction or even a violent crime or any of those types of scenarios? And then you have to start to think is, how does that search then get impacted by that? And the amount of time that's elapsed, somebody could cross into a different country, a different continent, all kinds of things could happen. And so to focus a search is complicated. So the reason we're constantly in front of the media, trying to do community meetings, trying to use Code Red, trying to work on things like the Amber Alert and things that people are really frustrated about. We just want the word out so that people are looking, and we're getting tips from all over the country. I don't know that any of those have panned out, but we're getting tips from all over the place. And we have other countries that are even asking and wanting to talk to the family. So there's support. I think because people feel that they could be in this same situation themselves. We just want word out so that more eyes are out, because we don't have an exact spot to look for. And that is unusual, especially with a large object like a car.
Thank you, Arizona Traveler, for that super sticker.
Piercing, is that a unique piece of jewelry? And also in the beginning, there was reports of a nose piercing as well. Are there two unique pieces of jewelry there too? Because that looks pretty unique, other than just the necklaces. Is there anything about that that we should be looking for? Because you just asked us to look for necklaces. Has there been any thought about that?
She certainly does have She certainly does have numerous piercings with numerous types of body jewelry, but at this point, we are focusing on her jewelry.
On the necklaces.
We were told that she always wears this type of jewelry. And so in case anybody from family or friends is searching for her and maybe happens to come across these necklaces, you know, we want anybody who comes across this to please call us immediately, because that certainly will provide us a new tip in a new direction.
There have been mention of rewards for tips. Do you guys have anything on that?
We don't have any law enforcement officially related rewards. We understand family and friends have rewards, have a reward set up in place, but that is not something that we can speak on.
Is there some way that pawn shops within the area have access to the possible necklaces appearing?
In California anyway, I can't speak on Nevada because I don't know the laws there. The pawn shops are required to send in notifications and slips to local law enforcement, and then we have the ability to then enter those into databases. We do use them for like burglaries and things like that. There's a time frame of when they have to turn that in. That wouldn't be something that would necessarily be immediate. And often one of the difficulties, and that's why I think a lot of emphasis is maybe on some of the jewelry that's on there. I don't know that I can guarantee those match exactly what she has, but often they're entered in as gold chain. And so, you know, that you can only imagine the number of gold chains that are put in the pawn shops.
You've received over 500 tips and video evidence. Within all of that, were there any sightings of Kiely?
So from what the detectives have reviewed so far, nothing has panned out. However, they continue to work and review video, and we're talking hours and hours of video that they're going to have to pour through, which they are. We've dedicated many detectives to this effort, and they are actively, as we speak, reviewing video to see if there's any clue that will lead us in the right direction.
And Lieutenant, may I ask one more follow-up question? I think this might be important for a lot of people. A lot of the people that we're dealing with here are juveniles. And a point that you mentioned is the fact that if you're not comfortable coming to law enforcement, to go to someone who is comfortable going to law enforcement. Why are you telling us that today, and what's your messaging behind that? And what do you want parents to know? And maybe on the off chance that a child is seeing this on social media or however they're seeing it, what do you want them to know?
So, you know, we understand that the uniform can be intimidating. And so we don't want that to be a stopgap for these juveniles. And speaking with community members last night, we were speaking about that fact. And, you know, if you have a coach or a mentor that you trust that can come to law enforcement for you, by all means, or use that as an avenue. And so we just don't want there to be any hesitation on the part of these juveniles to come forward with information.
The Code Red system is something that's been in place. Why is it just now being used to find Kiely?
Yeah, we have been talking about it for a while. It does take a lot. You have to break things up geographically. There are some things. It's not a traditional tool. It's not intended for a missing person. We had some faith that some of these other systems were going to move forward, and we put some emphasis onto it as we kind of built out a strategic plan to push out our Code Red. It takes multiple people. It's not like a one person. I can put out a Code Red pretty quickly on like a radius or something like that. But if you jam the system and it stops working and you got to wait for reset, and half get it, half don't, a person here, and it causes some confusion. So we've been working on it for probably a day-ish, you know, yesterday into the day, and we were trying to pick out a strategic plan to put out with Facebook to notify. And really, we're kind of hoping for a resurgence of bodies, right? Volunteers are getting tired of being in the field and searching. They're coming out because they care. I did search and rescue for a long time, and the love and energy that comes out selflessly to do those things, it can get exhausting when people aren't seeing that there's a goal or a direction, and we're all feeling that. So we kind of try to pick our planning of our timing to be effective, and also some of the things that it takes logistically. And I'm sure Everbridge is relatively the same. We're trying to work in conjunction and make sure our message is clear and concise and matches and things like that. Our hope really for putting out today is that we can get a real surge of searchers and things coming into this weekend and reinvigorate. And we talked to family today about, you know, the potential of messaging and things like that. to let people know that they care and they're on board and they really appreciate the community support and things that are going on. But we're trying to be strategic about things, but try not to abuse or lose things and stuff like that. So I'll leave it at that. It wasn't necessarily perfect, and maybe it could have used earlier, and we acknowledge that. We didn't really know it was going to be what it is either, and so this has grown into something that wasn't really anticipated in day 1 or 2. We do searches all the time. Nevada County probably goes over 40 searches every year, not to this extent, and things that don't usually go this long, because we're usually pretty successful. So pretty stressful on us as well, and more so on the family, and it's hard to look at them and not have answers. So.
We're going to take 2 more questions.
Is there, on your recent release that you came out today of agencies that have been assisting you, we noticed that Homeland Security has been removed from that list. Have they stepped away from the investigation? Are they still actively here, or have they pulled out?
We had Homeland Security listed earlier because they were assisting on some technical aspects of the investigation. It caused a lot of questions, and that may be why they've been removed at this point. I can tell you that there aren't any personnel involved from Homeland Security at this point, only FBI agents.
Final question. With searchers getting tired and new searchers coming in, and with this new technology you're using, can you reiterate that the people coming into town, because we're going to have a big influctuation of people into this community coming in starting tomorrow through the weekend, and if they do want to use those resources and go searching, can you explain to them where they need to come and they need to check the QR code and then use that before they enter the field instead of just entering the field if they're wanting to help?
Yeah, JD, thanks. I probably should have started with that.
It's okay.
There's a
We
lot
just
going
need to
on.
make sure they know they're coming.
Outside the box thinking, the teams came up with a great idea to create a mapping system for civilians and folks that aren't necessarily professionally trained to do certain things. The family has a trailer here in the rec center's parking lot. Rec center's been fantastic, allowing us to use this area and conduct media and community relations, but the family's been out in the trailer in the parking lot with the assistance from friends and community members. There's a system that allows you to log on to the CalTopo app. It's designed specifically for people trekking out in the woods, things of that nature. Also, we use it for search and rescue, emergency evacuations, and all kinds of things. People in the field can download the app, come down here, it can be accessed off of web pages as well and computers. But our goal for having the civilian side of CalTopo is people going into the field and helping us narrow areas that have been looked at and searched. We don't necessarily want to open up of, hey, here's where we've been searching, because one, we haven't found anything in those areas, but we also want to encourage people to go out and then be able to share those tracks. And so the reason it's not being, it has been copied and put online and it is accessible out there, but we don't want 1 million people from the United States logging on to this. We want people like JD's pointing out that are coming here to the community and are like, hey, you know what? I can take a route over here, or I can go and look at this. We don't necessarily want people to turn on tracks and just log tracks while they're driving around town and going to concerts or doing things that are still going on in life. We want people who are logging the tracks because they're actively looking and they're staring off on the side of the highway, or they're walking around Stampede Lake or anywhere that they might be in the area, actively looking, not just logging on because they want to see what everybody else is doing. In the event too many people log on for unnecessary reasons, it could overload that server, and we may have to shut that map off, start a new map with a new code. So we're really encouraging people that want to truly participate to be able to use it, but not just anybody throughout the world, because at this point, the QR code is out there. We didn't post it for a reason, and it's specifically for that, but it is a great tool. This hasn't really been done to my knowledge before, so we're really relying on the community to try to utilize this system appropriately to help out. That'll allow us to overlay on our current tracks and things we have. We're not sharing our tracks because it's a secret. We also don't want to condense people to come to where we're at, because that's where we are searching. But we also don't want to dissuade anybody that feels like they can go somewhere, because we're not perfect. And what if we did miss something and somebody else could have seen it? So we're not sharing it intentionally for a lot of various reasons, but it's not because it's a secret and it's hidden. We will share those maps and show things for people, but we don't want to influence a lot of things for various reasons. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you again to everyone for coming. Thank you to the family of Kiely. We really appreciate working with you, although we wish were under different circumstances. Any updates, any and all updates will be put on the Placer County Sheriff's Office social media accounts. So please continue to monitor those. We will have the latest updates on there. Thank you so much.
Well, folks, you heard it here first by accident because I wasn't planning on streaming that, but you heard it here first. By the way, I had a great conversation with Jennifer Coffindaffer. Feel free to go back and watch that if you haven't. And I will be back on the stream tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time Zone, where we'll totally unpack and break down what we learned in the press conference, what I felt like I learned in that conversation with Jennifer Coffindaffer. Please, please, please go hit the remind button on that video. And thank you guys. You guys are so kind. Thank you, Arizona Traveler, for that super sticker. Let's see if I missed. I think that's the only one that came in during that press conference. Donna, welcome to the Feller fam. We're so glad to have you. Renee sent that super chat. I already covered it. Thank you guys so much for your support. It means so much, honestly. You guys are just so amazing, and it just blows my mind that we actually are like creating a community of people who care about similar things. And every time I'm on here, it just like encourages my heart because I didn't even plan to come on at this time of the day. All you guys are on here and you support it and you love what we're doing. And I just, from the bottom of my heart, want to say thank you so much. And I'll see you back at 7 p.m. Central Time Zone.